welcome to a Circle Back podcast. My name is Hannah.
And I'm Adrienne.
And we've had a good day today.
It's been wonderful, yeah.
I feel like it's been pretty good.
It has been.
I
had a cookie.
To preface, I feel like I like that word. I feel like I say preface a lot.
It's a good word.
You know, when I was little, I used to say preface.
Me too. And
I
then
don't think that was right.
no, preface is not right. My mom was like, "Oh, sweetie."
What is there a word that's preface? Is that a
No.
word?
No.
I mean, if you didn't have a face before, it would be preface. Hannah preface.
Before her nose job, that was Hannah preface.
Yes. Okay, so I would like to preface just really quickly that one, if you hear a jingle jingle, that's the collar on Adrienne. It's the collar on my cat. So
I took the never mind.
okay, so if you hear that, and then also, you know, I have my kiddo around, so it is what it is. So okay, we are also here with. I was gonna say the lovely, but then I was like, that's a little much. But
it would be too much.
we are here with Jord'n Bay.
Jord'n Dale Bay.
I feel like when you say Jord'n Bay, that sounds like I have someone important here.
That
That's a cool name.
Yeah. I mean, you're important.
I appreciate that.
Like, I feel like,
Yeah.
like kind of like say Michael Bublé, but it's Jord'n Bay.
Yeah, I've been asked if I have any relation to Michael Bay. There is none. I
None.
asked. So
Okay.
I've asked around.
Michael
Yeah,
Bay is the man.
Michael Bay's pretty sweet.
He is.
Can we just,
Great explosions.
I would just like
That's
to
all he
say,
really does,
can
but-
we, for the listeners, just, like, who is Michael Bay? Just for the
Oh,
listeners.
He's a
he's the
director.
guy that.
For the listeners.
Yeah, he's the guy
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
directed the Transformer movies.
Yeah.
So
and
that's-
Transformer 2 as well. 3.
Yeah, movies. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
See,
I knew. I just want to make sure for the listeners
Yeah.
that we all knew who he was.
Look at you, so considerate of your.
You know,
Listen, if you are
listeners.
listening to this, you have a
You're welcome.
considerate podcast host.
Yes.
a podcast
so-
hoe.
A pod ho. Pod. Okay. Anywho, thanks for hanging out with us.
This is starting out great.
Yeah, this is
Thanks for
going to
having
be
me.
a great time.
I'm excited.
It's always fun because we do all of our recordings in one day for the month. And so everyone gets a different me every single episode, I feel like. Because, like, you know, your first one, you're kind of like getting warmed up or you're still a little groggy or tired. And then your second one, I like the second one the best, if I'm being honest. Because
So
I finally feel like a human being.
Yeah.
But I also ate, so maybe that was why. So, anywho.
Food will do that.
You wouldn't know.
You
don't
wouldn't know.
eat.
You don't eat. You have forgotten to eat up to this point. No, so yeah, I really appreciate you being here. I would like to, every single time I have a guest on, I like to introduce them of like how I've met this person, you know, because it only makes sense. Why would you be at my house? No. And so you and I met.
How do they relate to Hannah is the question.
Yes, this is all
On
about
everyone's
me.
mind.
It's all about me. What, like a year and a half now? Has it been that long?
Yes. November of 2022.
2. Yeah. So
Coming up on 2 years, guys.
yeah. Do we have a cake? So Jord'n came in with the Experience Church, which we all love. Everyone here loves them. And they started a plant here. I guess, is it a plant? Would you call it a plant?
Campus.
Campus.
Yeah.
Campus is the word, yes. Here in Tullahoma. And Jord'n is the youth pastor. And I got to know Jord'n because I worked at the church previous to the Experience. And so something that I've really, really enjoyed is that I got a whole new family, like just added to a family I already had, which was really cool. You guys really have loved us well, Matthew and I, and I want to tell a story.
That's what they do at the Experience, though. They love people well.
They do love
I really
people
appreciate that.
really well.
Well, as I always say, y'all make it really easy. So
We
I'm
do.
just saying.
We're lovable. Like a little, well, anyway, so
I have an obnoxious laugh.
yeah, just
So
be
everybody
prepared. Turn down the headphones now. So I have a story, and it might be awkward. Okay. Okay. So
He looks so nervous.
Now I'm real nervous.
I would be a little nervous.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had been going to, well, not even going to Experience. So like the church I was an employee at, like we kind of meshed so they could take over the church, right? And take over the building and all that. So I got to know you guys that way. but I didn't really know anyone on a personal level for a minute. You know, it was a while before I started to reach out as like friendships. It wasn't just like, oh, these people are cool and they're like a church staff. It was more like now I have friendships with them. And Matthew and I had gotten a divorce, or we were separated, something like that. And I had seen it was your birthday or something on Facebook. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to dive into the experience and make friends, right? Because I didn't really, you were in LA, I didn't really have friends, I didn't really have anyone to hang out with, and so I was like, that's a good start, right?
Yeah.
And I don't do this, but I was really working on myself to get a community. And so I reached out, I text Jord'n, I'm like, hey, happy birthday. And he's so nice. He's like, thank you so much, and it's great, whatever. And so we start like talking as friends and all this stuff. And
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah.
And this is really, it would be awkward.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling the story, Hannah.
It's gonna be great.
Well, it's fine. I don't mind.
Yeah, I
mind
didn't
at
think
all.
you would care.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so we're talking or whatever, and like I'm a type of person that get like kind of personal quick. You know, I want to know the nitty gritty. So I'm just sitting here like, so what do you do, or how did you come from, like, how are you in the youth? Like, I'm asking all the questions, you know. And I think I was like, let's hang out or something like that. And so he's like, yeah, we can hang out and go like let's grab ice cream in Murfreesboro or something. So we do. And we are like sitting for like 15 minutes, and Jord'n's like, so what is your intentions here?
Dude, you just show up randomly, and then I bring it up to some people, and they're just like,
Yeah,
so
she
you know
just
she
got
just
divorced.
got divorced, right? I was like, no. I'm like, what? And they're just like, and it's like, yeah, you may want to like check. I was like, okay. I was like, yeah, I should definitely check that.
Which is like a totally fair thing to check. I mean, you know.
But in your mind, you're like, oh, yeah, I got friends. Look at me. I'm working on myself.
But I really appreciated that because, like, I really appreciated it because I think
the intentionality behind it.
Yeah, because
sure.
I think, too, once that was, because I was like, a friendship, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And, but I think it opened a door for friendship, you know, and like to be able to talk without feeling awkward.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like him thinking I wasn't trying, you know, all this stuff. And it just I just think it's so funny because here we are sitting with, oh, I'm so sorry. Again.
That's the fifth time.
I'm hitting her mic. But here we are like sitting with my husband, like, you know, and because then after that, like I had gone to a football game with all of you guys, and I really that's when I think friendship really formed.
Yeah.
Is I got to, you know, I kind of got in with, and I'll just, you know, I didn't know Mary, which Mary works on the team as well. And, but I didn't know her. And the only reason I had reached out to Jord'n is because I saw the birthday, you know what I mean? And so it's so funny that now, like I now have a friendship with each member of the team individually.
So the key to you making friends is me not being here, I think is what
I
I'm
would
hearing.
say...
Nope.
Did you go? No.
Taken.
Just trying to bring you back to her.
It's all about me.
But anyway, I just thought that was really cool, and I did appreciate the candor and the upfrontness.
Good
of
word.
That. Thank you, because I think it opened a door to just be friends and to be okay with friendship and be okay, because if we're being honest, like in the dating world right now, it's all about social media. It's all about the website, or, you know, what is that called? Online dating, things like that. And I definitely at that time, like Matthew's my guy, right? And so like I'm just thinking of like how confusing it could have been if that was not brought up ever. You know, would we be sitting here today?
Yeah.
You know, would the church be, you know, would I have these friendships here today? And so without the maybe uncomfy conversation, who knows what would have happened. So anyway, how do you feel about that, Matthew? We here. Matthew has said nothing. I'm like, all is well, right? I love you. Okay. The other day, I asked Jord'n to come over for podcast topics or whatever, and he's like, is your husband home, Hannah? I was like, yes. Oh, man. Yeah, that's my bro.
It's my homie, dude.
Yeah, so any hoops. I just wanted everyone to know how I met Jord'n. We'll cut that too. Everyone feels weird right now.
No, it's fine.
No, but I did appreciate that a lot, and I thought it said a lot about who you were as a person to be able to just be upfront to know, how to move forward as far as friendship goes, and just as like how to communicate with someone.
Yeah.
In any type of relationship too.
Exactly.
I mean, friendships or whatever.
Because I was going through something that was extremely difficult, and to be able to have friends in that time was key for me, and for you to allow yourself to be like, I'm just gonna be upfront and ask, and then we can move. Then we can move forward and like all hang out and that no one feel weird.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So any hoops.
Yeah, I was told once, clarity is kind. And so being clear is extremely kind.
Yeah.
So being clear with
I
your
agree.
intentions, being clear with where you're at. So I try to live that out.
Yeah.
And just being clarity is kind. And I
Yeah.
try to be as clear as possible with, hey, like, when we're hanging out, like, I love you as a friend, but
Right.
like,
Yeah.
maybe this ain't
Yeah.
the route that we're going, you know? So,
Yeah, and even with like friendship, it's to be clear with your intentions and also just your expectations. I think is such a key thing, because so many relationships in general, whether it's a romantic relationship, friendship, whatever it is, can die because of expectations that were never said or never met.
And they were never met because they were never said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
and sometimes
That's
it does because the expectations
Or too
weren't
high.
met, but weren't communicated that they weren't met.
Yeah.
And then you just like,
You're all left wondering.
nah, I'm good, bro.
Yeah,
And you're
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, why in the world did this friend ghost me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so unfair to everyone.
Absolutely.
And even the person that does the quote unquote ghosting, because they're not clearly communicating, and also there's something going on in their life to where like they feel like they can't. And it's like, that's crappy. Like
Yeah.
it's a crappy way to go about things.
It is.
And so I think that I love that clarity is kindness, or whatever you just said.
Okay. Use morph it however
Yeah. Now it's
Hannah
mine.
wants to
Yeah.
use it.
I came up with this really great saying the other day.
What if I put the clip of that, but it was me saying it? It's like, wow, Hannah really was just perfect. Yeah,
We can edit this however we want to edit,
yeah,
you know?
Listen,
that's
this
the
is your
beauty.
show.
Yeah, that's the
I'm
beauty of
just
it.
a humble guest on it.
So I had asked you, I believe, to come on the podcast, and you were very kind and gracious and said yes. And part of this podcast, so many people ask me all the time, like, what am I going to talk about, or what do we want to talk about? And my heart behind it is to allow you to speak on something you're passionate about, something that, you being a believer, something the Lord has put on your heart, if that's something you want to speak about. And we kind of met the other day with my husband. I've made this whole thing so weird. But we met the other day about how kind of the Bible has changed your life personally.
Oh, yeah.
And how that has happened and things of that nature. And you're a youth pastor, and you're 28, and like you're not married, you're not, there's these things, and I'm just like, how does Jord'n get here? You know what I mean? How does he, because I'll be honest with you, for a long time, I saw youth pastors that should not be youth pastors, if I'm just being honest. Okay, I say that, like, who am I to have the thing to say you should or shouldn't be? I'm not, but they're like 19-year-old dudes that it's like,
They've been a Christian for 6 months.
yeah, you know what I mean? And so like, how do you know if you're called to this, and how do you navigate?
How do you steward that as well?
How do you navigate this? Because when these teenagers are coming to you for advice on dating, relationship, things like that, I'm sure you have had your own relationships, but like you're not married yet. And like, you know, these things, is it ever intimidating of like, how do I do this? But also the Bible is your guide, right? So it's,
Yeah, I mean, I think that if someone's 19 and 20 and they're youth pastors, then I'm like, man, you're young to do that. I'm not going to say and disqualify someone because since we're talking about the Bible does say not to have someone despise you because of their youth. And so I remember when I was in high school, when I became a Christian, the first guy that discipled me, he would take me on mission trips all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And so we'd go to Nicaragua. We'd go to a place called Sneedville, Tennessee, which is like... Sneedville. It sounds like it's out of like a Dr. Seuss. And one Christmas, we did a Dr. Seuss Christmas themed thing. But we would go out there, and it's in Hancock County, and it's one of the poorest counties in Tennessee. And majority of the people when we showed up, before we showed up, they didn't have like running water. It's like the deep mountains, Appalachian stuff. First guy I ever shared the gospel with, actually, his own dad was his biological dad was his biological grandfather. And so there's like some navigating that I'll let you figure out. But there was just a lot of that and a lot of brokenness that was going on.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure it out in my head.
Yeah. So it's okay. Is it okay if I explain it?
I don't care.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, cool. So basically, his dad had a kid with his daughter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
So
that's
yes.
Okay.
So he had So that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
And he was in and out in the foster care system, and that really, I don't know, it just really broke my heart. He was, I think I was 17 or 18 when I first met him. And I mean, he was 26, maybe 23 when he was in mid to early 20s, but he had a mind of like a teenager, just because of the stuff that happened to him.
Yeah, sure.
And so, but I remember I would continue to go to these mission trips, and I'd go and I'd see like these pretty serious things. And I asked him, I was like, why do you let me do this? Like, most people, when they see like a teenager or a high schooler, they're just like, oh, like go to camps, all this other stuff, which camps are great. We just got back from a camp. But there was also a sense of, I would do these things that a lot of high schoolers just wouldn't do in youth group and as a youth. And I remember he said, 1 Timothy tells us that not to let others despise you because of your youth. And he's like, I'm not going to despise you. I'm not going to say like, oh, you can't do this because you were young. So that's my mentality towards a 19, 20-year-old that's a youth pastor. I'm like, I'm not going to despise you, because there's some people that like, dude, way wiser than I, far younger than me. Sometimes when I'm in youth group, I'll have
You did a Hannah. That's you gotta be careful with those mics.
I remember one time I was in youth, and he just multiple times students will just drop bombs. We were just like, that's extremely wise, man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not gonna really speak to whether they should or shouldn't be. There are character qualities that I've seen that I'm like,
Yeah, I guess that's what I was gonna ask. Do you think there's qualifications on like? Maybe it's not the age, maybe it's maturity, maybe it's things of that nature. But also I feel like it's one of these things that most people aren't going to do unless you're called to do it, you know? Yeah. And so it's like, who am I to question that? But at the same time, I think with what you were saying is that the characteristics shine through, you know, someone's character. Like, I wouldn't mind Elias being in your youth group because I know you and I know your character and things of that nature. There's, you know, there's people that maybe I wouldn't feel the same way that are older than you. Like, you know what I mean? And so I think I hear that. I think that you have to be careful just based on age. Yeah. But do you ever find it a little weird that you're like having parent meetings with parents that are older than you, or is that difficult?
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah. After a while, you kind of just get used to it. And you recognize that I may not be the wisest person, but I do surround myself with much wiser people.
Yeah, that is a good point.
And so I may not go into these situations having experience. And I kind of lean, again, kind of circling back to kind of the Bible. I mean, Paul was never married. He never had kids. And yet he gives some of the best marriage advice in the world, right? I would say the best marriage advice in the world. And so, not to say that I'm Paul, but I do think that there's certain times when experience outshines calling, or not calling, placement in positions. And then sometimes there's a calling that people have that is supernatural, because sometimes some people go to their pastors that have never fostered for fostering advice. And so I think that there may be sometimes positions and times, but I just try to very much bring in the Bible as much as I can, because as I say to parents, I get biblical advice.
And truth is truth, no matter what.
Absolutely.
No matter where you are.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably the best thing you can do, because I think it's so easy. Working in the church myself, you have to keep yourself in check to be like, this isn't about me, first of all. And also, like, I don't know it all. So, like, my personal opinion doesn't matter here. God's opinion matters, right? And you have to continue to remind yourself of that, because it's very easy to be like, well, I built this youth. I built this whatever. And I've made the plans and I've done this. And then you're like, man, like, I need to take a step back here. And I think it's easy to get into that mindset if we don't, be careful.
Yeah, I think.
And have people around us, like you said.
I think that's a huge problem of people in ministry, and not even just people that work for a church, but some people that just volunteer consistently. They think like, man, I did this, I did that. And yes, you did. Something that was told to me when I first started working in a church and started making, I was bivocational first at a church up in Vermont, actually. And something was told to me was the floorboard that the ceiling that the current generation builds is the floorboard for the next generation. Yeah. And so, like, knowing that I did not build the flooring that I'm on, like, someone was already there building that for me, continuing to do that. And I like how I was telling some of the students recently, like, I got asked, like, what's your favorite Bible verse? And I'm like, dude, that changes like every 6 months. Like, because I'm just like, but right now it's Luke 24, and it's for much is given, much is required. And knowing that, like, much has been given, not much is earned, much is required, much is given, is required. And so knowing that my ministry has been given to me and
entrusted to you
and entrusted to me. So I have a lot required of me, but also it's been given, and it can be taken away just as quickly as it was given.
Yes.
Like, that's pretty much what happened. Like, I was going to be working for the Experience installing security cameras. And then basically literally one day they were just like, hey, we have this youth pastor position. Do you want to step into that? And I was like, sure, why not? Like, one day I was going to do one thing, and the next day I was going to do something else. And who's to say that can't happen? And that can happen. It can very much happen. Just be like, hey, like, because of a moral failure or just whatever may happen. I don't know.
And so did you have any second thoughts about taking that position? Or is it something you wanted to do?
At the time, I was very much like, put me wherever. If I need to install security cameras, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
There was some hesitation, because it's like, oh, well, why me? Right? Like, I'm surrounded by a lot of great people that could also do that. There's a lot of great people on the team that can do that. And so I remember when I was talking to Corey Trimber, the founder of the Experience, he asked about that. He was like, so how's it feel? I was like, it's kind of weird. Just because it's like, why me? And he's like, that's a really good mentality to have. So, because there's hesitation in that of like, dude, like, I have so much stuff I need to work on. But it's like, who doesn't?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, who doesn't have stuff that they need to work on? So.
I think I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if we put too much. I don't even know how to. Just too much. Something
emphasis.
Maybe, I don't know.
Importance.
Maybe on the word calling. Because I think it's pretty clear our calling is to be disciples of Christ. and to tell the world about him. Like, that's pretty clear. That's what it says. And I've talked to you, and I've talked to Grant. We talked to Grant, which is the children's pastor at the Experience here. And we were like, so kid, like, you don't have kids? Like, is this always something you've wanted to do? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But he said something, and I'm going to butcher it, so don't quote me, but...
Yeah, his journey to that position has been extremely powerful.
Yeah.
Like, extremely powerful.
But one of the things he said was, he's just like, God made me aware it wasn't about me. And it's not about what I want to do. And all of a sudden, you start to fall in love with what you're doing because you're doing it for Christ. And he will equip you in that if you have the right heart. And so I think that's something that's really cool with kind of your story that relates to that is, I didn't know I was going to be a youth pastor, but since I'm willing and I have the humbleness to say, why me? Why is this happening? You know, there's other people that are better, and our heart is soft and moldable. I think the Lord will always equip us to do what he needs done. And what he needed done as a youth pastor at Tullahoma Experience. And here you are. Like, you know, you're an able body that knows the Lord and trusts the Lord in that. So kudos.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that one thing that really helped me was when I was working at a church in Vermont. I remember I met this one pastor, and Vermont's kind of like known as like the places that like churches go to die because, I mean, it's just a lot of steeped cynicism. Expectations are never met when you go there. And I remember like one of my first few weeks out there, I was talking to a guy, and he was saying how there was this note card that this one pastor had, and it was 2 note cards actually, and it was filled front to back, filled with pastors that showed up and planted churches. And he was saying how he got asked, he was like, so how many do you think are still here? He's like, I don't know, like half of them. He said, no, 2. And we're like, 2 people.
I just told Dad to come in quietly.
He comes in and slams the door.
Dad, the vacuum is in the laundry room.
Hey,
What's up?
Hey, Dad.
need I eat all that at one time?
No, don't give that to him.
Give it to me.
Dude, then why'd you ask?
Taller than him, Dad.
Here, you give it to me.
Dad, I am recording a podcast.
Life happens, you know.
Okay.
Love it. I absolutely love that.
Okay, so you were in Vermont.
Yeah.
Wait, are you from Vermont, by the way?
No, I'm from Lebanon, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, technically Hartsville. I just went to a school in Lebanon. So, Possum Town.
Nice.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
He just has no awareness. No, just doesn't care. He's like, here I come, whether you like it or not.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Thanks, Dad. What?
We're Doberman.
They're all upstairs. Yeah.
Are we doing the podcast right
Yeah, right now. You're
Run
on.
through your cord here.
now?
Yeah.
Oh, the wax elephant?
Hop on the mic, Dad, over there.
Love you.
Love you. See ya. And that's the cleaner of the Experience Church, ladies.
Yes, he is. Such a faithful guy. I love it.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, so 2 pastors were left on that.
Yeah, so
Or that note card.
Yeah, so on the note card, there's 2 pastors left, and most of them end up leaving because they're like, "Oh, I've been here for 2 years. I'm not fully paid. It's not a full-time position, so I'm just going to dip out." And so it's like, what were they chasing? Like, what were these guys? And I can't speak for them, but that very much asked me and made me think a lot about, like, what am I chasing when I'm doing this? In this ministry that I've been called to do, what are the things that I want to get out of it?
Yeah.
And do with it. And so that was very much a question that was asked of myself, because I don't want to be just a guy on a note card, right? That just shows up and he's just like, "Oh, this is too difficult, whatever, deuces."
Yeah.
And I think that's really when you just have to rest in like the calling that we are supposed to make disciples.
Yeah.
We are supposed to do that. And so how you do that, you don't need to get paid to do that. And some people can start churches and they never take a salary. And that's great, man. That is so good. It's such a good calling. But yeah, so it just really depends.
Yeah, I mean, it just changes person to person, and
Absolutely.
the relationship that you have with Christ is so unique to the next person. And so, so when did was the experience the first time that you guys had you've been exposed to expository teaching, which is just, that's the word, right?
Yeah, it is.
Taking verse by verse in the Bible, going over that.
Yeah,
is that kind of what changed your perspective or view of Bible reading?
I was very shocked. I remember the first time I went through it, when I sat into teaching, and I think they were going through Daniel. And I remember I was just like, no, it was Matthew. They were going through Matthew, and I was just like, you can do this at church? Like, you can go just through the Bible? I'm like, that's so cool, dude. I wouldn't say that it did definitely change. It changes, I think, you as a believer when you're exposed to that. I think just in general.
Yeah.
And it's not, when people ask the experience, hey, how did you grow? The first thing we bring up is we just go through the Bible. And it's not super sexy. It's not super attractive, right? Like, we just go through the Bible and we try to stick to the Bible. And so when
that is what brought me to the experience.
Yeah.
That's what made me stay
Yeah,
there. It's
absolutely.
so refreshing. I love it.
And I remember when people feel like when they leave the experience or they move wherever, and they have to kind of lead the church, they're always just like, it's hard to find a church that does that.
And
I'm like, and once you're exposed to it, you are very much like, wow, not a lot of people do that. But back to your the other half of your question. I would say that the Bible very much has always just kind of been an integral part of my belief. And some of that has been exposed in the beginning and has completely changed by different analogies and stuff that I've like, oh, this is a good way for me to clarify how it works in my brain. And I like how one analogy that I was told was like, you have a pen pal. And so you are writing this pen pal, and I'm trying to remember who even said this. It was on a podcast, actually.
Probably me is what
Yeah,
if
probably.
I had to guess.
Yeah, it probably was. So,
Hannah.
But he was saying how, imagine having a pen pal, and every single time they start their letter, it says, I'm eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And then you finally meet this person, and the first thing that they say, you get them a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, because that's what they eat every day, supposedly. And then they're like, don't you know I'm allergic to peanut butter? And you're like, something here is not matching up. And I remember being told, like, this is God's mind on paper. Extremely early on in my walk, was like, if you want to know who Jesus is, because I had a pretty just miraculous salvation kind of experience. And he ended up saving my life. And so I was very much like, okay, like, I want to know the person that saved my life. I want to know the person that keeps me going, that has these plans for me, that and these good plans for me, and that he's not done with me. And so I feel like I should just tell it since whatever. But basically, I dealt with a lot growing up and ended up trying to commit suicide. And during that process, we'll use that word. So sorry, trigger warning. Should have said that, but
We got it at the beginning. Don't you worry.
okay, cool. But just during that process, I heard a voice that says, I'm not done with you and I have more plans for you.
When you say heard a voice,
It was like audible.
really?
Yeah. I don't expect to hear that ever again. God was extremely, extremely gracious with that. But yeah, so that's why I say miraculous.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I heard a voice that said that. And then just through some soul searching, I like to describe. I don't really have other words to describe it. I remember there was a worship song that was going on, and we were singing Psalm 13. And it says, Psalm 13 goes, how long, O Lord, will you hide your face from me? How long, O Lord, will you forget me? But I will sing to the Lord, for you have been good to me. And I remember hearing that, and like that still small voice that the Bible describes. Some people describe it as your conscience. That was like the time that I heard that, and it was kind of just Jesus was saying, like, I'm the one that saved you. I'm the one that loves you. I care about you. I have more planned for you. And so when I kind kind of found out it was Jesus, I kind of honestly just latched on to this first guy that discipled me, and he was my cross country coach in high school. And so outside of cross country season, our last period, I just go running with him and another guy named Caleb Hieronymus. And I remember him.
What a name.
I know, right? That's awesome. He's such a cool guy. He just had a kid a few months ago. Yeah.
Congratulations.
I know. Caleb, you may never hear this,
Mr.
because he doesn't have social media.
Marmalopoulos.
Yeah, so.
Totsopoulos.
I know.
Bababababoulos.
Yeah. But I remember I would go running with these guys, and I remember I'd just be going through the Bible, and they were just like, this is God's mind on paper. This is how you can know who saved you. And I remember reading this, and it was so cool because Caleb was in my grade, but he'd been following Jesus for a lot longer than I had. And I had my cross-country coach, Greg Armstrong, and I think he was in his 30s or 40s at this time. And he'd been following Jesus for a long time. And so it was cool to have like this perspective of like someone that knows kind of what it's like to be in my position, but also have someone that's older than me to pour into me that I can just be like, dude, it says this. What about this?
Okay.
Like, what the heck is a Pharisee? Right.
Well, help me. Help me, please.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, I'm really glad you're here.
Yeah, me too.
And, I think it's so important to tell these stories because it's not everyone's story, you know. And someone hearing that you heard a voice is like so, it could be so like left field for them. Like, how come I haven't heard that? How come it still hasn't come for me? How come like all these questions, right? Of like, and honestly, I don't have the answer. I have no idea why you did and the next person didn't. Yeah. But I think it's so cool to see that you opened yourself up to asking questions. You know what I mean? Because I think at the end of the day, you could have gone either way. You know, you could have been like, yeah, okay, I heard you, but I'm going to go this way, or I'm going to go this way. And but what I'm hearing is that you weren't afraid to dig into the questions of like seeking out people that maybe knew more than you, or, that lived the lifestyle that you did or that you wanted to live. And I think that is key for people that are just figuring this thing out. Because we just talked to someone, and she was talking about how discipleship is always the strong suit in the church nowadays. And we don't know how to walk with people. We don't know how to, we can get someone in the chair and we can quote unquote get them saved. But then what? You know what I'm saying? And so it's so easy to get lost in the shuffle. And
we were part of a church for years that did that. You know, it would save people and then doesn't care enough to walk with them.
Yeah, and it's whether you're a Christian or not, I think at the end of the day, when they see people loving people well, it changes everything. And that's when people start to believe what we say, Speaking of the experience, I'll just say, and I think I told you this, but you guys had invited Matthew and I to lunch, and we went to Ragu or whatever, and on the way there, Matthew's like, so who's going to lunch? And I was like, they just texted me, and and they asked me if we wanted to go to lunch, and I was like, I didn't realize it was a team, like their whole team and like other people, and Matthew goes, why would they invite us? And I was like, I don't know. And then something that came out of his mouth was, why do they love us this much? And that right there said it all. To me, is that, man, this is how what makes the difference for someone, that, I mean, Matthew is a Christian, but was at the time really wrestling with church and with believers and his own faith, and just the simple, want to go to lunch, like opened up so many doors and questions and things like that. And I often look back and wonder how many times we've missed the opportunity to help people just because we didn't listen, you know, and how many times we don't have to make it as difficult as we do, and so with the Bible, for me, I think that the Bible's always been scary to me, because it's about the really
It got really dark outside really quick.
Storm.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
Twisters.
Okay, sorry. That's but like, so I have like severe trouble with comprehension. No joke. Like it is debilitating. Like I cannot comprehend very well. And so every time I would read, it's like of course people are like, the Bible's so hard to understand. It wasn't even that. It was like even a book, like a regular book. It goes beyond just the Bible. But with the Bible, I was always so upset at the Lord because I was like, here I am trying to read this and I don't understand it and you're not helping me understand it. Like, and not only do I not understand, I can't even tell you what I read 10 seconds ago. It's just not getting in there. Yeah. And so I would go to these VBSs and at the end of the week, people are getting prizes for remembering verses that I can't remember. And I tried and I tried and I tried. And eventually it was like, you're just not good enough or you are not trying hard enough. And not that people said that to me, it's just how I felt. And now here I am 28 years old and I still feel that way sometimes. Like what's the point in reading if I'm not even gonna, I mean, know what I'm saying? But here recently, I've kind of turned the page on. Anyway, I've tried to like make it less about Let me just slide that little nugget. But make it less about my incapabilities and more about His capabilities to help me. If that makes any sense. And man, He is revealing things to me in the moment because I'm listening. Before I wasn't really listening. I was just checking off a list. You know what I mean? And I have things to write down and I'm excited. And I may not be able to tell you exactly the verses. I will never be the person that's like, ooh. Oh my gosh, this podcast
God?
just got circle back after dark hours. But like, I'll probably never be able to say, oh, that's in Mark and this is what happened. I probably will not be me. But it doesn't mean I'm not absorbing things. And that's been a really cool thing to, strip away everything. And I think that's why the expository teaching was helpful to me because I was like, oh, finally someone can explain this to me step by step.
And you could be the person who remembers all of the Bible verses, but if you don't live it out, there's no point. And I think you're probably the person in my life who lives out the Bible more than anyone else I've ever met.
Now that we have video, I'm gonna splash water on my face.
Oh my gosh, you should put put the drops in your eyes. But no, but the fact that who cares if you can't remember?
The fact that you can't even do Genesis 1:1.
The fact that no. But first off, I'm super proud of you for continuing to push through that because I love reading. But that's because comprehension has never been really an issue.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine.
I want to love reading.
I know, but I can't imagine pushing through the way you have with that in mind.
With your disability.
Hannah. She's not like the rest of us. I'm trying to give you a compliment.
I know,
Shut
I'm
up
so
and take
sorry.
it. Oh my gosh. It is inspiring to me.
That's so funny.
To go read my Bible more because... I mean, if Hannah can do it, anyone can do it. Am I right?
I mean, honestly.
You said that, not me.
We were all thinking it. I just said it.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate that. I really do. But, I hope that people understand. Jeez, old Pete, Jordan. But I hope people understand it is so much more.
Yeah.
It's the heart posture behind it.
Well, and it really opened up for me the living part of the gospel of the Bible because it literally is speaking to me as I'm reading it. Does that make sense? It's a whole new revelation for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it has before, but just because I'm been consistent with it, it's like it's okay that I may not remember exactly the place I read yesterday. You know what I mean? Because the Lord's speaking to me right now.
Yeah.
And I think for so long I was just like, well, I'm not able. I'm not able, and I'm not able. It's like, I know I'm not able, but he's more than capable to help me, and he will reveal the things to me in the scripture if I allow him to in the moment, So it's all about me.
No, I think it's a really good point of, especially people that may not live it out or let the Bible speak to them will sometimes treat it as if, oh, I read that book of the Bible, I read Mark, so now I don't need to read Mark ever again, And it's like one thing that
last year.
Yeah, right. Like one thing that I've learned is how much the Bible will continue to speak to me, and how much more I can get out of it that I just never. I'm trying to think of an example, but I'm blanking. Yeah,
the brain.
So, well, in that same vein, my mom has always instilled in me the value of wisdom. And so she would, I remember like in middle school and high school, she would encourage us to read a chapter of Proverbs every day because there's 31 chapters, read one a day. So I've read a chapter of Proverbs every day for probably the past 10 years. But almost every single day I notice something different. Yeah. Like a certain verse will stick out to me.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really incredible because I've read that book, so many times, but I'm still getting something out of it every single time.
Well, I mean, we're always evolving as people.
Yeah.
Adrienne 10 years ago has experienced more than Adrienne now. I mean, less than Adrienne now.
I'm glad no one in this room knew Adrienne 10 years ago. That was rough.
But like, it's so cool because he never changes, but we always change.
Yeah.
And he's consistent.
Yeah.
In what he says.
So Jord'n, how would you say your relationship with the Bible has changed since? Has it like changed?
I'm so sorry for everyone's ears, by the way. It's so you can really hear that, right?
You think? Can you hear?
Oh God, yeah. You're gonna.
Well, I know we can.
What is it called? AMSR,
ASMR, ASMR.
That's what's happening. All right, go ahead, really quickly. Sorry.
I was gonna say.
Not like really quick.
It's her world. We just live in it, y'all.
It's actually called Hannah's Circle Back Podcast.
Circle Back with Hannah. No, what I was going to say is since becoming a youth pastor, has that changed the way you've approached the Bible? Has that changed the way you see the Bible? How's it changed you? In a very broad, general sense.
Yeah. I don't think that necessarily my position of it has changed. Like, since I got my position of being a youth pastor, it's changed. I think that's been pretty much the same. I have wrestled with kind of in the beginning when I started following Jesus, back in 2012. So, but when I started to follow Jesus, I think very much I struggled with the prescriptive and descriptive. And so when I say it, for the listeners that are talking, there's like prescriptive times where you'll read it and it talks about David sleeping with another man's wife, right? Like that's a prescriptive thing. It's not like you should do this.
That's a descriptive thing, right?
Oh, sorry, descriptive. Yeah.
So we're not
Yeah. Sorry.
You're fine.
That's a cool sound. I like that. But a descriptive thing. So, but prescriptive is Ephesians, and it's saying love your wife as the church, or love your wife as Jesus loved the church, and dying for the church. And so, that was actually one thing that I remember when I was talking to my older brother about. I actually brought this up on another podcast, but I remember talking about my older brother. He was like, I want to go to this church. My wife wants to go to this church. What do I do? And I remember we were talking about this at the reception of his wedding. And I was like, bro, you should have talked about this before you got married. But
Too late now. We're in it now.
Yeah. But I remember I told him that, you are supposed to lead. And you are supposed to be the head of the family when it comes to leading them to Christ and setting kind of the thermos. You're almost like the thermostat of it, and they're kind of the thermometer. And so it's kind of like you set the temp of it. Like you're supposed to be like, hey, like this is where we're supposed to be at. Sometimes that sometimes it doesn't work, but that's what you're kind of supposed to do. But I was like, you're all supposed to die to your flesh. And so I was like, Jesus is at both of those churches that you mentioned. And I was like, Jesus is at both of them. So I don't think God's like, oh, you need to do this. You need to go where you want to go. And like, you need to take your family where you go. This may be a moment where you're like, okay, I need to tell my wife and be like, hey, I'm taking you and our kids, and we're going to go to this church. Or it could be, okay, God is here, and this is where my wife wants to go, and I trust my wife through prayer, and I trust my wife that she's praying just as much, and she cares about our faith just as much as I do, so let's go there. And I'm going to die to my flesh and go where we're meant to go. And so I was like, I can't really prescribe that for you, but I was like, this is kind of where we're at. And I think that has been very much an helpful thing of I would not know how to navigate that conversation without the Bible. And I wouldn't know how to be like, dude, like freak what you feel, bro, you know, like go for it. I don't know. So I think that's kind of how I would navigate it pre-Bible. But I think definitely I struggled a lot with the descriptive stuff of that and struggling with some of the rawness of the Psalms. And so knowing that, like, I remember I was reading one Psalm, I can't remember where it was at, but it was talking a lot about destruction and destroying people. And I just remember thinking, like, I have been there. And I remember thinking, like, man, Psalms is just like one big book about why we should journal.
Yes.
Like, you know, like just like writing it down and just being like, and I think that's also been, I remember I was talking to one guy, one of my friends, about just kind of being free from sin and how did we get free, and sharing testimonies of stuff that we used to struggle with. And he was like, yeah, it really helped me. I just wrote down everything that I did. And he's just like, all the stuff that I acted out on, looked at, all the other stuff that I did to people. He's just like, I wrote it all out. Yeah. And he's like, wow, I am terrible.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's been super, and I think that was something that really got from me from when I was going through the Psalms at that time, was like, I just need to write all this stuff out. I need to, like, sometimes write out those intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, oh, you know?
Well, puts in perspective that we're all human.
Yeah.
And we're all broken.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No matter how close on, like, quote unquote, you are to the
Yeah.
Lord.
But I think also just like that of going back to kind of how has it changed. I think that was one aspect. But then I remember I was going through the Psalms this past year, and I remember, again, we got to the part where he was talking about destroying enemies and stuff. And I was like, why don't I treat my sin like this? You know, like, why don't I treat my sin as if, like, God, destroy it, absolutely wreck it, like, get rid of this evil that I want to do, like, completely obliterate it. And why can't I just do that? And so I think that's an interesting part where you're like, when you go through the Bible, you may see different parts of it. Like this, like 3 or 4 years ago, no, it was probably 6 years ago, when the journaling thing happened. I was like, man, I just need to journal more, because I was reading the Psalms. But now it's like, God, like, really just wreck my sin. Man. Like, get rid of it. I don't want it. I don't want to be near it. I don't want to have it. Yeah. Like, destroy it. Like, you want to like, you're talking about, like, David's talking about destroying his enemies. And I'm like, just do this. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's
cool.
cool.
Do you think since you do lead these young adults, right? I mean, some of them are.
Yeah, I also do young adult ministry.
Yeah, so do you find the need to understand things better? Do you feel like the pressure, like, oh, I need to understand everything. I need to be able to give the answers that these kids are asking.
I think my position has actually empowered me to say I don't know more, because I would say, oh, I need to have an answer, even if it's the wrong answer. Like when I first started following Jesus, and I just recognized how quickly I wrecked people, man. I regret so much of the advice that I would give, just because I was like, I got to give an answer. I just wasn't humble. I was not humble enough to say, I don't know. Yeah. And so some of that is just life experience that I've gone through, life experience of following Jesus, life experience of discipling some really difficult people. And So I would say like God has been kind of preparing me for when I get in this position so that I can say, I don't know. I think it's also important, one, to say, I don't know, but to also try to follow back and look into it and be like,
Circle back. Maybe.
circle back to the conversation. But yeah, I think that's another big thing is, and sometimes middle schoolers are tough. So because like sometimes they're just like, I don't want to talk about that right now.
Yeah.
Like, I want to play, I don't know, Jenga.
I want to play
like
Fortnite.
Yeah.
Fortnite, yeah, that's a huge one. So
Yeah, I used to I used to say I don't know a lot because I just don't know. But when I was in a position of to pastor people, you know, and to share the gospel and things like that, and something I really, really enjoyed is being able to say I don't know, but to go with them to find the answer if we could.
Yeah.
And if I couldn't, go to someone wiser than me. And
Absolutely.
you know, and kind of like you said, like the follow through and follow up of doing that, I think says more than just throwing out an answer.
Absolutely.
You know, it's
Absolutely.
it's a dangerous game if you just throw things out. Because
Yeah, wrong answers are definitely more hurtful than
Absolutely.
no answer at all.
yeah. So, fun. This
Yeah.
has been a good time.
It's been a great
Have
time.
you had a fun time?
I had a great time.
What if you're like, absolutely not?
I don't know. What's he going to say? No?
I don't know. It's just, I mean, you know, I've had fun. I think it's really cool to speak on the reality of how hard, but so good the Bible is. Like, you know, and it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it. If we just allow ourselves to take the time to open it up.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. And to be able to ask the questions that we don't know and to go to someone who could help and or do this thing together. You know, you can always just read together.
Absolutely.
You know, and just start somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's been a big thing for me is just to start somewhere. And I can tell you wholeheartedly, and I have had some really bad days the last 3 weeks, but I can tell you wholeheartedly, like the Lord's changing my life through reading the Bible.
Absolutely.
In ways that I didn't know he could for so long because I just kind of gave up on it. But he's just has made me more patient. He's been able to just show me the sin in my life that, you know, is just small little tweaks really, but that's going to make a better Hannah at the end of the day. And, you know, changing my mindset and just putting down things I need to put down and, you know, not focus on as much. Oh, I just kicked this microphone. It's like the 5th time today.
6th, if we're keeping track.
So anyway, I would love to talk more. Just not right now. No.
Absolutely.
Matthew's like, hey, Hannah, we got to go. Matthew is my time
Keeper.
So thank you, though, for hanging out with us.
Thanks for having me.
I hope that you had a good time. And
I had a great time.
I think that the Lord's going to use you even more in the next season, the next couple of years, or whatever you decide to do.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see it. So,
Yeah. I'm excited to see it as well.
You good over there?
I'm great.
You good over here?
I'm great.
All right. I love you guys, and thank you so much for talking with us. Circling back. That sounds so...
Thanks so much for circling back with us.
Like and subscribe and share.
Hit that bell.
Share it.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, friends.